I have taken time today, just like I promised, to follow the Raila Odinga's African Union Chairperson Commission launch in Addis Ababa on this Friday evening. And I need to say this, and I need to start with this disclaimer. Raila Odinga have had his own fair share of mistakes and missteps in this country. But you cannot take away his passion for Pan-Africanism. And it is indeed true that perhaps if the continent was to come to Kenya and pick a Pan-Africanist, Raila Odinga will not fail to top that list. However, the level of hope-hawking and shambolic campaigns on whatever is happening around the candidature of Raila Odinga is something that I believe in this podcast we should tell off the handlers of Raila Odinga's bid. We launched Raila Odinga's bid in this country, in Kenya. It was attended by East African presidents and quite high-profile leaders from the continent. And then 2 months later, after going quiet for almost 2 months, again we landed in Ethiopia. And if you ask someone, if you ask a diplomat, that I've looked through that event, I've not seen a single president there. And so I asked around, and one diplomat who is a member of this channel have given me an answer that the campaign launch in Ethiopia, they invited the ambassadors of all the 54 countries in Ethiopia. But what was the choice of Ethiopia? Because the Ethiopia is the headquarters of Addis Ababa. Of course, that is right. Now, and of course, Raila, the objective of that launch was for Raila to sell his blueprint to the continent. Has that been achieved? I can tell you without a of doubt. The Nairobi launch is miles ahead of that thing happening in Ethiopia. And to say the truth, the Kenya Kwanza team have just hijacked Raila Odinga's candidature to organize these events just as cash cow, to milk some money in the name of campaigning for Raila Odinga. I want us to look at those optics. Towards the end of this video, I will play for you the Pan-Africanism speech that Raila Odinga gave in Ethiopia. It is very rich, and it's something that I think I can tell you you'll listen to. But I'm a bit disappointed by the way Kenya Kwanza is handling. Remember, over the last 2 weeks, we raised questions that, is Kenya Kwanza committed on campaigning for Raila? So immediately we did that, and of course, after the Rigathi Gachagua impeachment, there have been sections of Kenyans that feel that Raila should lose because he did the heavy lifting to impeach Rigathi, his party. That cannot change. It is Raila who did the heavy lifting to impeach Rigathi. Without ODM, Ruto would not even have tried to impeach his deputy. And so the country was divided on that. But I want us to put that apart, and I want us to put that away so that we look at the real thing. Do we really mean well for Raila Odinga's candidate? And I want to tell you that what happened in Addis Ababa, and if you look at the whole thing, I'll explain to you that if Kenya Kwanza is not committed to campaign for Raila Odinga, Raila's chief campaigner is William Ruto. And if he is not committed to campaign for Raila, then let Raila withdraw from that race. Let them tell Raila to withdraw from that race. They should not put the country in some emotional. The country cannot invest its emotions, and Raila's supporters cannot invest their emotions in something that the president, who has been touted as a grand master, is not interested and is not really pushing. I want us to make some few observations here. Look at the people that were surrounding Raila in that event. This is the video of Raila arriving in that space. You can see those around him are Kenyan leaders. And those are the fellows that were escorting him when he was going there. The network around him, I saw ODM leaders. In fact, there is a photo I was just sharing. There is a photo, there is an official photo that I've just seen on leaders that have gone there. I have seen Wanga, Junet, that is Wanga, that is Junet. I've seen Rosa Buyu, Sister Ruth Odinga, and quite a number of fellows there. I just want to look into that. And Ledama Olekina, and Musalia Mudavadi and the PS. So my question is this, why should Governor Wanga, why should politicians, MPs, waste, and a governor waste taxpayers' money to go to Ethiopia to attend that event? What value do they add for that campaign? Okay, fine. Let's accuse and say, because that is the party leader of ODM, so they are there for motivation. But remember, taxpayers' money. That to me, that is not a big issue. Guys, Raila Odinga's chief campaigner is Kenya's number one, William Ruto. Do you know, and that's what I'm telling you, do you know that William Ruto attended a Samburu cultural festival and skipped that event? And I analyzed in my previous video that yesterday, the president flew back in the country in the evening and attended some Talanta Hela Stadium. And I was asking that it would be very funny to see if President Anarudi na Raila na launch on Friday. Today on Friday, he didn't go to attend the Botswana swearing in. He sent Kindiki. He was attending a Maasai cultural festival in Samburu, while Raila Odinga is launching AUC bid in Ethiopia. Honestly speaking, where was Ruto supposed to be between those two? A cultural festival can be spearheaded by a governor. He can even go and close it after attending Ethiopia. And William Ruto skipped that event. So it's a low profile. If you ask me, that event was a bit low profile. Now I asked, why did Ruto skip? I've gotten this answer. That because no single African president was in that event, that could have informed the decision for Raila not to attend. But then that begs the question. Some people have said that all African presidents cannot show their position. They cannot show who they are supporting and who they are not supporting. And that is why they cannot maybe go publicly there. But in Nairobi, we saw African presidents, East African presidents in Nairobi, declaring their support to Raila Odinga. A breaking news from Ethiopia would be some African president who had not communicated anything about Raila's bid, declaring that their country is going to support Raila. So why didn't we have African president there? It's a question. And we should not assume that it was not necessary if you're really campaigning. And that is why some of us think that these launches are just events to milk some cash, to make money, but not really to campaign. William Ruto did not attend it, and it shows to some extent the low profile he has given that. If anything, Raila's helped him more than any other person. Without Raila, Ruto's time ilikuwa inaisha. Yes. Ruto's time ilikuwa inaisha. So they had to betray the Gen Zs so that Ruto can get government. Government can be stabilized. It's a sign of non-committal. I made second observation. In Ethiopia, that event, Raila's team invited those candidates that are vying for Deputy African Union position. The deputies. Remember, Raila is vying for chairmanship. But at the same time, there are those who are vying for deputies. Out of all, only one from Algeria attended.
I'm very sorry. We have here Ambassador Selma Maliki from Algeria. Is she around? Yeah, maybe she might want to come and say jambo. Because, as you said, we wanted, if there was any other candidate in the audience, give a chance to greet the people. But I've not seen any other candidate for the chairmanship. If there's any, none. For the vice.
And so I saw some information that Algeria is supporting Kenya. I think it's give and take. They support Kenya candidature for chairmanship, and Kenya supports their candidate, who is Algerian ambassador in Ethiopia. The Algerian ambassador in Ethiopia is vying for the deputy position, and she was the only one. So, and I think they said that, I think Raila was saying that they invited all of them, but only that one from Algeria attended, and she was given time to address the crowd. Now, the speech by Foreign Affairs PS Singoei that Raila Odinga is the candidate of Eastern Africa, and as we speak, Somalia and DR Congo are non-committal on that event, on Raila Odinga's candidature, and I want to show you why. Raila Odinga once gave a position. There is this Somaliland issue in Somalia between, I think it's Somaliland being carved from Somalia, and there is a territorial fight between Somalia and Somaliland, and it's causing a lot of troubles because it drags even Ethiopia in it. So that discussion, that issue, is making Somalia non-committal on Raila Odinga's candidature. But also, others also argue that Eastern Africa had not settled on one candidate and all of them are on target. So when it's a misrepresentation of facts that Raila is Eastern candidate. But in DR Congo, today something very significant happened. And Kenya must work on its ties with DR Congo, because if you see these photos, Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi today received credentials from newly appointed ambassadors to the DRC. However, Kinshasa has refused to accredit Kenya's ambassador designate nearly 1 year after he was appointed and deployed there, citing interference from President William Ruto. So as we want to mobilize votes, and we need the vote from DR Congo, we must work on our diplomatic ties with Congo. This is something DRC Congo. Tshisekedi has refused to receive the credentials, and of course, remember during the DRC campaigns, there was some opposition figures who held a meeting here in Nairobi, and that meeting did not sit well with the Tshisekedi regime back in DR Congo. So we really need to be committed on that. The other issue is about the campaign team. I saw a name known as this gentleman, I just want to get his name, Karuti Kanyinga. Karuti Kanyinga was named as one of the Raila Odinga's campaigners. But he went on Twitter and said, "Surprised to see my name in a media list as part of a team to mobilize support for Rao's candidature. I haven't been directly engaged in this yet. Funny that no one consulted me. Raila is a great Pan-Africanist and I wish him all the best." But he is saying that he has not been consulted and no one has spoken to him about Raila's candidature. So it tells you the way they have just put up names there without even consulting, and that is another thing you can make. The other issue I realized here is sensational media propaganda, social media propaganda. Intentionally, they want to try to show the country that they are campaigning for Raila. And look at these posts. They're posts of many presidents. And there was one that they were even saying that the Djibouti is supporting Raila, endorsing Raila. There is a social media campaign for Raila. And I'm seeing clamor for that social media campaign. I still want to say and repeat, Raila Odinga's candidature cannot be executed in social media. Bloggers cannot campaign for Raila. Some of those African presidents are not even in Facebook, even in Twitter. So I'm even wondering now. I saw Ahmed Thuku saying he doesn't support Raila Odinga's candidature. Of course, everyone is entitled to his opinion, but do you want to tell me that Ahmed Thuku can convince one African president not to vote for Raila? No. So we must, if you're intentional about Raila Odinga's candidature, then we must come out of that comfort zone and campaign for Raila. And the person to do it is William Ruto. You can see the way when Uhuru Kenyatta was campaigning for Amina, the whole government, ministers were being dispatched in those countries. Leo ulikuwa nasikia waziri huyu amekutana na huyu president. Waziri huyu amekutana na huyu president. We are in November. We are getting to December where everyone is going for holiday. Then we'll be back in January and that election is in February. Is it too early or is it too late? We need to be intentional if William Ruto is really campaigning for Raila. Lastly, I checked media coverage. In fact, I was glued in the mainstream media here. I looked at the first four articles by Standard, by KTN, by Citizen, and by Nation, by NTV. I did not see that Raila Odinga's event in Ethiopia featuring anywhere. So we didn't give it the coverage and the prominence that probably is expected. What does that mean? If you want to sell the Raila Odinga up to the continent, then even if you cannot get international media to cover it, then the local media should amplify it, because there are many ambassadors here that probably follow what's happening through the local media. I tend to believe that the Kenya Kwanza administration is not very intentional, and they're not pushing to the limit that is expected, if indeed we are talking about Raila Odinga's candidature. Let me leave you with a snippet of Raila Odinga's speech today in Ethiopia. I think it's time to hit the road and campaign, if we mean. Otherwise, we're just playing games with Raila Odinga's candidature and creating events. Even they need to organize events in Ethiopia. Hey, yata sielewi. Haya. Tuonane bana.
With skill.
It should be back now.
So, thank you. Thank you. So, our youth are the biggest resource that we have in the continent. But we first need to give the youth the requisite tools that they require to be able to create wealth for our continent. This is another major challenge to us. This is what other countries have done. This is what China did. China empowered the youth and gave them skills so that when they opened up their economy, the big manufacturing companies rushed to China because they saw there highly skilled and cheap manpower and also cheap raw materials. So you go to China, all the major manufacturing companies are in China. The automobile, Mercedes is there, BMW is there, Volkswagen is there, Peugeot is there, Citroën, Volvo, Ford, Toyota, Nissan, Hyundai, all of them are in China. In Germany, they tell me it is cheaper to manufacture a Mercedes-Benz in China and ship it back to Germany than the one manufactured in Stuttgart, Germany. That enabled China to move 600 million people from poverty to middle income status. So China is today no longer the cheapest destination because most of the people have become more affluent. A gap is left down there underneath, which Africa can fill. Because China has the cheap raw materials, but those raw materials are made with original raw materials from Africa. They have cheap industrial materials. They have got steel, they've got copper, they've got aluminium. But all those are made with raw materials coming from Africa. So if you can do the value addition on the continent, then you don't need to, people don't need to go to China. Those industries will come to Africa, and Africa will become the next factory of the world. This is one of the things that I have in mind. This unity has undermined our ability to mobilize our resources to catalyze the collective dreams of the continent's citizens. Africa's unity is therefore sacred to me. We must return unity to the top of our priorities as Mwalimu Nyerere and Nkrumah did. Without unity in a fast consolidating and changing world, Africa will continue to be marginalized, exploited and irrelevant. It is why today I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to open your minds to a new Africa. Imagine an Africa that's booming with industry, where businessmen and women from Bamako in Mali can take the transcontinental high-speed rail to trade in Kampala, Uganda, where the cotton material from Lomé in Togo can be bought online by our housewife in Lusaka, where African products can be bought in supermarkets across the world under the name of African brands owned by Africans, and the African workers and farmers are proud of their products. An Africa that does not require visas for other Africans. An African men and women who do not climb on a rickety boat or in an airplane cargo hold, risking their lives to go to greener pastures. I envision a continent whose progress is driven by its own people, that pushes to be a dynamic, influential, and respected force in the international arena. And here, again, the barriers which we place on ourselves. My friend Aliko Dangote, one of the most prominent African businessmen, tells me, Raila, it's so difficult to do business in Africa. I need 35 visas to travel across the African continent. Yet my French competitor does not need any visa. The French passport can go to all African countries. How then can you compete? How can you benefit by being African? You're being punished because you're an African. These are some barriers which make us look just stupid. In Europe, when I was living there, traveling in Europe was very difficult. You had to have a visa. When I was traveling from Germany to Britain on a train, I needed a visa to transit through Belgium or Holland, 2 visas. And if you did not have that visa, they put you back on the train back to where you came from. Today, you don't need a visa in Europe. The Schengen visa, you can go to any country in Europe. You only get, if you're traveling by road, you only get to know that you have crossed the border by seeing the different registration numbers. And so Europe has become a village. Why can you not do that in Africa? I intend to see that we introduce Africa, the AU visas, like the Schengen visa.